First, I want to say thank you to Tyrenichols' mother for everything that you tried to do for your child. And I want to send out a special prayer of strength and a covering of love for you, for the loss that you have experienced in this situation. I thank you for everything that you've done as a Black woman and as a mother, and I pray that peace begins to come over your life, no matter how long it takes. I struggled somewhat as to how to start this video, but point blank period, Black men, this is your fault. I repeat, Black men, this is your fault. No one else is to blame. No one else is the culprit. Only you. All of you. It's your fault. And regardless of whether or not you want to believe that, regardless of whatever delusions and stories that you tell yourself, everyone knows the truth. Everyone can see it. Now let's talk about it. On January 7th, 2023, 5 Black police officers from the Memphis Police Department severely beat 29-year-old TYRE Nichols, a Black man, during a traffic stop resulting in his loss of life 3 days later in the hospital. The officers stopped Nichols for alleged reckless driving, pulled him from his car, and used pepper spray and a taser on him. Nichols managed to break away. One officer, as other officers pursued Nichols, said, "I hope they stomp his ass." When officers caught up with Nichols, they beat him for about 3 minutes, punching and kicking him in the head and striking him on the back with a baton while he was restrained. Nichols was hospitalized in critical condition and lost his life 3 days later. An autopsy commissioned by his family found extensive bleeding caused by a severe beating. The 5 officers were fired on January 20th, and on January 26th, they were arrested and charged with murder, kidnapping, assault, and misconduct. 2 firefighters who were on the ambulance that took Nichols to the hospital were relieved of duty pending an investigation. On January 27th, the Memphis Police Department released 4 clips of edited video showing events between 8:24 p.m. and 9:02 p.m. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and the United States Department of Justice both opened investigations. Widespread protests began on January 27th. That's what Wikipedia writes about TYRE Nichols losing his life. In the time that this story has been released, I've seen several Black males, along with some other individuals as well, place blame in their opinion as to who is responsible for this situation. As some of you may know, Jason Whitlock thought it appropriate to blame baby mama culture and Black women. Some people are blaming Republicans. Some people are blaming Democrats. Jason Whitlock also blamed the media for attempting to distract people from what's going on in Ukraine. There are also people who are blaming the police department and the police brutality that we've witnessed over the course of recent history. But I call BS on all of that because the only people here to blame are Black men. If I recall correctly from observing the surveillance and video footage from the night of this incident, I don't recall seeing any Black women or single mothers on this traffic stop pulling over TYRE Nichols. I don't recall seeing any media personnel or any politicians from Congress. I also don't recall seeing any other races of police officers assaulting TYRE Nichols within inches of his life. All I see are Black men. So I'm confused as to how people who are in the situation situation or around the situation, observing the situation, could think that it's anyone else's fault than black men. This is nothing new to black women. Black women know exactly what's going on because not only do we see it in our communities on a regular basis, but we've grown up with it. We've had it as our fathers. We see it through our brothers, and we see it in a majority of the black men that we mistakenly choose to try to create families with. The only black women who don't see it are the ones who refuse to see it, who are just as delusional as the black men they're clinging so hard to protect, who perpetrate this type of behavior. Black men are one of the largest, if not the largest group of self-hating individuals on our planet at this time. They are a threat to society and have been a threat to society, with their only reprieve coming from the very same black women that they blame and continue to abuse. That's why I call BS on all of the finger pointing in this situation.
Everyone's behaving inappropriately, including these 5 Memphis police officers. It's an open and shut case. The camera from above captures the police doing something totally illegal. The second-degree murder charges are warranted. This is going to be a revisitation of the Walter Scott, the guy that got shot on camera by a cop in the back. He got convicted, went to prison. It's an open and shut case. This is too. I don't get what people are protesting about. These are 5 black officers. The victim is black. The police chief is black. The police have been fired and charged, and they will be convicted, I would assume, by a predominantly black jury in a city that's 65% black. So the system is going to work here. What the other system that's working is the corporate media's insistence on promoting racial division at the behest, in my view, of the military-industrial complex. They want us all looking at this and not looking at what they're doing in Ukraine as they drag America and the world into World War III. This is a distraction, in my opinion. CNN hyped this video like they were hyping the Super Bowl. And there's really only 60 seconds of relevant content. You show the police misconduct from overhead as they brutalize this man and make it clear this is an open and shut case and the guys are going to be convicted, and we move on. They treated this like a Super Bowl, enraging people, promoting the violence, and this is the most important story in the history of the planet. It's not. What's going on in Ukraine and our military involvement in Ukraine, that's the most important story going on in the world, but they don't want you focused on that.
That is such a good point. And you would, I mean, you've been in the news business all your life, 35 years or something. I felt guilty putting that video on the screen, not because I was on anyone's side. I felt obviously bad about it. It was horrible. But because you don't want to put ugly things on TV and inflame passions. You want people to be reasonable and think things through and reach wise decisions. Why would news organizations, I mean, they really want to make people enraged, clearly.
They don't want us focused on reality. Hey, if they want us to devote an hour of coverage to this and weekend coverage of this, and they want to take us to a good place, I would examine the racial element of this, because there is a racial element. And this is a story about young black men and their inability to treat each other in a humane way. Everybody involved in this on the street level was either 24 to 32 years old. Everybody. It was a group of young black men, 5-on-1. Looked like gang violence to me. It looked like what young black men do when they're supervised by a single black woman. And that's what they got going on in the Memphis Police Department. They've elected or put some black woman in charge of the police force. And we're getting the same kind of chaos and disunity and violence that we see in a lot of these cities that are run by single mothers. If we want to discuss the breakdown of family that leads to disrespect for authority, that causes you to resist the police and run from the police and not comply with the police because you resist authority at all time, because there was no male authority in your home, let's have that discussion. But that's not where they want to take us. They want to take us down the path of saying, you know what, this is Tucker Carlson's fault. This is some random this is Donald Trump's fault. It's not. It's the breakdown of family and the buying in to all these left-wing things that have nothing to do with promoting family.
Cut it out. Stop it. We are not going to sit here as grown adults and act as if baby mama culture and single mothers is a result of Black women. If it weren't for Black men abandoning their families and their children, there would be no single mothers and baby mama culture. If Black men had any type of emotional, spiritual, mental, or physical connection with their children, this would not be happening. Black men, this is no one's fault but your own. If you stood up and stopped being cowardice, deadbeat, delinquent individuals within society, none of this would be happening to your people or to your image. The individual is in control of their image, and the actions of the few outweigh the actions of the many. So the few of you who want to claim that you are different or you are the exception to the rule, you need to sit down too, because none of you are doing anything of substance to change the narrative of African American culture within the society that we live in. If you were actually taking charge of your portrayal within the media, there would not be any ability to mislead or create stories about who you are as people. If you actually held yourselves accountable for the actions that you take as individuals, holding each other to a higher standard, no one would be able to tarnish you. So don't come out of your mouth with the hot air that you are spewing about Black women and single mothers within a culture that you created. That's the bottom line. The deeper issue in this situation is the fact that Black men cannot take accountability due to the lack of self-accountability that they hold within their own lives. If Black men were actually doing the work spiritually and mentally, emotionally and physically to change their circumstances and make changes within themselves and their own life, none of this would be happening. See, you are the most lost individuals on this planet. And you know why you're lost? Because you have decades and centuries of trauma that you refuse to deal with. You refuse to get help. You refuse to talk about your emotions and your problems. You refuse to be realistic and logical when it comes to dealing with situations that you've experienced in your life. And therefore, you project it and perpetuate it onto your children and onto the very same people within your community that have tried for years to lift you up. People like to laugh and joke about religious communities or spiritual communities and say that they're not on the mark when it comes to doing better within yourself. But the reality is that it's extremely hard to be someone who has actually done the work on themselves to be a better person. It's one of the hardest things that an individual can do. And that's why I know that Black men are cowards, is because they are too weak and sad to be able to actually look at themselves in the mirror to make a change for the people who depend on them. And then when Black women try to help make that change and support Black men, when Black women try to do better for themselves and leave Black men behind, we can't get rid of you. We can't wash the stench off because you don't understand when to shut your mouth and hear the lesson. You don't understand when to shut your mouth and open your ears so that you can hear the lesson. You're losing support and you're losing sympathy. And whether or not you see it now, tomorrow, in a few months, or in a few years, you are not going to have anyone left who is on your side, because everything you touch crumbles. And you know why everything you touch crumbles? It's because of the fact that you have chosen a low vibrational path in life. You've chosen to allow the musical culture to be trash, and you've allowed the music industry to raise your kids. You've chosen to allow the media culture to be trash, spewing negativity and hatred about the same women that you're supposed to be protecting. You've allowed government officials and officials within the school district to literally groom your children into the same types of behavior that you have fallen victim to and destroy your community so that no one succeeds. And you're not doing a single thing about it. That is why you are subservient to every other race on the planet. Do you get it yet? Do you really get it? You know what? I know you don't get it, and I know this went completely over your head. As a matter of fact, I don't care if you get it or not, because I'm done. Just like so many other black women who are done and washing their hands of your buffoonery and foolishness. And what I would say to other black women who finally are realizing the truth, you need to be done too. Now is the time where we must take accountability, ladies, for our actions and how we've been participants in perpetuating this nonsense. No more standing out with your signs, no more getting on the picket lines, no more speaking life into these men through your social media platforms, no more having intercourse with them, no more having their children, no more saving them from the government when their delinquency is putting you at a disservice, no more letting them stay in your house, no more letting them have access to the advantages that you've been able to procure in this society for no commitment whatsoever. Leave them. Leave them exactly where they are striving so hard to be, in the gutter. Because if you as a black woman or as an individual of any other race continue to support black men at this time, you're only going to be brought down with them. What happens when you have a friend or a family member that continues to get in trouble, that continues to cause problems, that continues to put you and everyone around them in precarious situations? You end up taking the fall. You end up being an accomplice. You end up as a casualty. And you end up hurting that person more when you enable and continue to allow their poor behavior to be perpetuated. This group of men is a disgrace. They are the largest disgrace and smudge on the life and advancements that we have made as African American people and even black people living in other countries. All that fighting for their causes is going to do is end up bringing you down. And I don't care who has a problem with me saying it. I don't care who's sensitive about it. It's the truth. And because as a black man, you refuse to see the power that you have within yourself and within your influence, you refuse to take accountability for your own actions and the actions of your counterparts, and you refuse to use your influence in a positive way within our society, people are going to continue to use you and take you down. Once black women leave, no one is going to have your back because you don't have your own back. You don't support yourself. And if you think for one moment as a black woman that you're making any type of impact or change on this delinquent group of individuals, you're a fool. And I don't care how many brainwashed, delusional black women that these men have on their side, it means nothing because their spirits are weak. You can't make any progress with a weak spirit. So all of those black women that you want to say are never going to leave, that's fine because they're on the same energetic vibrational level that you are on as a delinquent, degenerate black man, and their energy will not be able to cultivate the change that you think it will within your life. The main person going through trauma in situations that looks deep within themselves knows that they are the only one that can get them out of whatever predicament or situation that they are in. They know that they are the only one that is capable of changing their circumstances. So a person who truly wants to change takes that responsibility very seriously. It's not a playing matter, it's not a laughing matter, and it's not lightweight work. It's extremely heavy. And as a black woman who is now a single mother, I have tried for years to understand why y'all just don't get it. But that's done because there's no point in trying to understand why you don't get it. It's clear that the choices that you make are yours and only yours. And that in and of itself is the reason. It's because of your choices. That is why as black women and as black mothers, we have to separate ourselves from these situations. That's why as a black mother to a young black boy or a young black girl, you need to stop lying. You need to start telling the truth. You need to start being transparent and clear with your children about who their fathers are and what they do. You need to be clear about what this community is about. You need to be clear about what they see on TV and what they're going to experience in school. You need to be clear about making sure that they are aware of themselves and that they know to be the best people that they can be regardless of who's around them, and that they don't don't have to impress anyone to be successful. And you're gonna have to do it coming from a healthy place, from a level-headed standpoint, free of resentment and anger from the person who put you in the situation that you're in. You're gonna have to remove your own personal bias and let them know the truth of the matter from a logical standpoint. And the only way that you're gonna be able to do this is if you deal with your own problems and you disconnect yourself emotionally from your trauma and what you've been through to heal the things that you've had to experience in your life so that you won't perpetuate that trauma onto your children. The lies must stop. If their father is delinquent and in jail, tell them that their daddy is in jail. If their father doesn't pay child support, show them a breakdown of the bills and let them see the child support website. If you want them to understand how to have self-esteem, let them know what people are going to say. Let them know how they're going to be treated. Show them and tell them from your own experiences what they can expect so that they don't go out into these streets blind. That is how we make a change in our community, ladies. What I foresee, in my humble opinion, coming out of this situation is absolutely nothing but the same thing that's been going on. Black men are not going to make any changes. They're going to continue to complain and whine like the gelatinous babies that they are. They're going to continue to place blame. They're going to continue to point the finger, and they're going to continue to lack the ability to take accountability. And in my opinion, in my humble opinion, there's going to continue to be a resurgence of nonsense that you see from Black men, and there's going to start to be a change in the way that people deal with Black men, and their image will continue to be tarnished by not changing their actions. And more people will refrain from dealing with them until everyone is gone. No one is going to be in their corner, and they will be alone to deal with their issues because that's the way the universe works. There's an imbalance, and when there's an imbalance, forces that are beyond our control come in to create and rectify balance. They're going to have no other choice than to better themselves, and if they don't, there will be a natural selection-esque type of process that takes place to remove the cancer from all of our lives. Now, I do not condone violence, and I do not wish any harm on anyone who is involved in this situation, but what I do know is that you cannot run from karma. Karma is coming to hit Black men where it hurts because they do not want to stand up and do what they need to do to better their lives and change their community. That's why any Black woman who is still supporting this group of males needs to run for the hills because you don't want to be caught in the crossfire when it starts to go down. Karma is coming to collect for all of the minds that have been influenced by the musical culture that Black men perpetuate. Karma is coming for all of the gang violence that has taken innocent lives in the neighborhoods of our communities. Karma is coming for all the Black men who purposefully leave and abandon their children and don't support the mothers who are trying to keep those children alive. Karma is coming for all the Black men who have physically abused their wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, children, and parents. And karma is coming for Black men when they talk down on and degrade the very women who support them and have their back. Trust and believe, it has not been forgotten. And this is not about speaking negativity. This is the reality of the situation when the energy that you put out comes back to you, because what goes around comes around. When you continue to be in a victim mentality, you continue to be a victim. The only way that you can rise up and become what you're really meant to be, no matter who you are or what you look like, is to take accountability for your actions and for what has placed you in the position that you are in. And until you're able to do so, nothing in your life will change and you will continue to be a victim. That is why Black men do not have any respect. That is why Black men continue to perpetuate violence and drama. That is why the Black community is what it is. It's because of Black men and only because of Black men. And I said what I said. So if you want to get in the comments and let me know how you feel about this situation, feel free to do so. You guys feel free to subscribe, like the video, turn on post notifications so that you can be caught up every time that I post, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.
So I've sat in this seat after Breonna Taylor was tragically killed by law enforcement, after George Floyd as well. And it's really sad that we're still having this conversation. The irresponsibility of law enforcement. Their job is to protect and serve. When tragedy happens, when chaos takes place, we call for them in order to cover us, not to kill us. And it's a sign of anti-Blackness in a lot of ways, because you have multiple officers who are armed, who are in a position of power, yet they abuse that power they kill an individual. They basically stopped him for a questionable reason. And now, as you mentioned, his daughter and his family and the rest of us have to ponder why and what if. So I just want to send prayers to their family and strength to everyone that can hear our voices. But also at some point, not only do these law enforcement officers need to be held accountable, but we need to be in a position to where we can trust our law enforcement and they can be in a position to actually do their jobs.
Well, you know, you talk about trust, right? And when you, as an African American, and we're dealing with law enforcement, the first thing as an African American man, the word comes to mind is fear. Right? You fear of what's going to happen. Whether it's a traffic stop, whether it's anything to that nature, you fear, especially when it's a white cop that's coming up to you and saying, you don't know what's going to happen. You fear not to get a ticket or get charged with anything criminally. You fear for your life. So watching this, right, incident, this heartbreaking incident that happened to Tyre, you look at it and you say, okay, as an African American, you see a black cop of your race coming up to you, all of a sudden that fear level goes down. Like, okay, cool, he might give me a ticket, or he might, take me in, or he might just give me a warning because he might understand me, right? And you have that little bit of hope that, things are going to change and have some type of comfort. But then when you see a certain situation happen like this, all of a sudden it goes out the window. And all of a sudden you're sitting up there asking yourself, what's next? Now that 10% hope that you did have, you don't have that no more.
To piggyback off of what both of them just said, 5 black police officers, big guys I might add, took a 150-pound, 29-year-old young black man who did nothing wrong, was at a red light. You run up to his car, you curse at him, throw expletives in his direction, you drag him out of the car. You're incredibly excessive to the point where at that moment he's running for his life. People didn't pick up, or I believe people haven't picked up on the fact that obviously he was driving the car. So because you're driving that car, that's how you knew where to go look for him, because when he ran, where was he going? Well, you had an address, because one of the first things a police officer does is they get your plates and they have an address attached to it. So where do you catch him? 3 homes away from his own house, which is why this young man, 29 years old, working for FedEx, ends up screaming for his mother. Now I watched all 66 minutes of this tape.
Me too, it's crazy.
2 officers had him on the ground. Another officer came up and kicked him in the face twice. Not only that, another officer came and punched him in the face 3 times. Not only that, another officer came, all while he was being held, and hit him at least twice with a baton. And we only know that because of the surveillance camera across the street that caught him overhead. The body cam that they were wearing. Ladies and gentlemen, go back and watch. We couldn't see anything from the body cam because while they were holding him and restraining him, they were blocking the visual of the body cam and screaming, put your hands up, put your hand behind your back. They had already had him restrained. They were conjuring up a story while they were torturing this man. They beat him to death. Literally. And they were black officers. So to go to what Kendrick is saying, now it's really conspicuous and it's really obvious. There's 3 colors that we're talking about here. Yeah, it's black. Yes, it's been white in the past, and now the perpetual color is blue. Because clearly when it comes to some police officers, not all, but when it comes to some police officers, they're willing to commit these heinous acts. And there are not enough people in blue willing to call them out and address them to make sure that they don't stain the reputation of the whole. And in the end, we have us as black men seeing this kind of treatment, and then we have to absorb the responsibility. What would make you think this is okay, and what would make you think you can get away with it? Could it potentially be how black men are depicted and portrayed in our society, thereby giving at least a select few the notion that they could get away with such a thing? I applaud the DA, I applaud the mayor of Memphis, I applaud the governor of Tennessee, I applaud the district attorney. They've acted swiftly, they're bringing the hammer down, but what you're doing to these officers, because as far as I'm concerned, they deserve life, you need to do to any officer that does this.